Hi, it's Deborah Carter here from PreparationTech. Today I have the most amazing interview lined up for you. I'm speaking with Pablos Holman in Seattle. Pablos is
Hey there.
a famous futurist, hacker, and inventor. I came across Pablos in 2006, and I'll never forget this because he gave a presentation at an innovation festival, and live on stage, while he's talking to us and addressing us, he actually hacked into another speaker's voicemail. And for me, this was, and everybody in the audience, we were just blown away. So I'm so excited. Welcome, Pablos. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I think it worked. People stopped using voicemail after that. I don't get them anymore at all. Yeah, in those days I was mostly working on computer hacking, but what I eventually learned is that the minds that computer hackers have and the way they think about how to discover what's possible and solve problems and do new things in a different way turned out to be something you could apply to all kinds of technology and all kinds of problems well beyond computers. And so I really, after that, started trying to go work on more and more of a wide variety of invention projects, trying to figure out how we can use technology to go attack some of the biggest problems in the world. And so we can talk about all of that if you want.
Great. Well, for the people out there who have no idea what a futurist or a hacker does, can you talk about some of your specific projects? I read that you zap mosquitoes with lasers, which I have a vested interest in because I had life-threatening malaria at one point. Also, you worked with Jeff Bezos on launching or building spaceships.
Yeah, so in 2000, I think it was 2001, Jeff wanted to start essentially the first privately funded space program in human history. And that sounds like a crazy idea, but it was kind of the first time that we had nerds that were rich enough to do that kind of thing. And so we started a company called Blue Origin, and the idea was to figure out if there were better ways of getting into space than rockets. And we spent a lot of time trying a bunch of crazy ideas and eventually figured out there were some good ones, but rockets were probably the most practical in our lifetime. So then Blue Origin has gone on to build a new rocket to go to space. And I think the thing I learned from that I think is really worth pointing out is that you see around you, people tend to have an attention for very acute problems. They're mostly worried about whatever the news is freaking out about tonight. And a lot of people, really can't get past that. But the truth is, if you look on a longer time horizon, whatever you're freaking out about now probably wasn't the biggest problem a week ago or a month ago. And it's certainly not going to be the biggest problem in a month from now or a year from now. And so learning to think on and look at problems on longer time horizons really helps, because by almost every objective measure, anything you could imagine, humans are doing better now than at any point in history. And there's really no reason to believe that that won't be true going forward. And so it's really exciting to be working in technology, because you can see how a lot of the problems that humans have had and have solved, it's technology that gives us the superpowers we need to solve those problems. So occasionally somebody like Jeff gets the luxury of being able to think on even longer time horizons. And Jeff's idea is that someday we'd have trillions of humans thriving in space. And we have no idea how to do that right now. It's going to take thousands of years probably to pull that off. But if we get started now, what we can do now is get that ball rolling. And really, it's only a few extraordinary people who get that luxury of being able to think about the problems that humans have on that long of a time span. And so I feel really lucky to have gotten to work on that.
Awesome. And I hear now that you're working on the apparel industry and hacking the apparel industry because it's a huge polluter.
Yeah, so the apparel industry ended up really catching my attention. And the reason for that is just that in my career, I always felt like I had this incredible superpower, which I got from computers, to be able to take them and use them to go after, doing things differently in almost every kind of business. And when you look around, when you're an inventor, when you look around, what you see is, where are the opportunities to go use, that superpower to make things better, to do them in a faster, cheaper, more efficient, more humane fashion. And eventually I set my sights on the apparel industry because it turns out to be one of the worst industries in the world. Possibly the second worst industry in the world is my current estimate. And the reason for that is just the way the industry is structured, they don't get to innovate too much. And so, for the last century, a lot of technology has come, a lot of innovation has happened that's been picked up in a lot of other industries, but apparel hasn't. And so they've grown and they make a lot of clothes. Last year, the industry made about 150 billion garments. Now, there's only 7.8 billion humans, something like that. So that's a lot of clothes. 55% of that is already in landfills a year later. A third of it was never sold in the first place. So this is a pretty sickening industry. Imagine if we, drove a third of the cars that we made directly to the landfill and nowhere else in between. And the apparel industry is almost as big. So this is a pretty damning, kind of situation for humans. We really need to take responsibility for fixing that industry. And it turns out you could do things a lot better. There's all kinds of great technology that's being used in other industries that you could adapt to change the way we do apparel, but nobody's really trying. And so that's one of the things I'm working on.
Perfect, thank you. So my next question is, tell us a bit about how you approach your projects. How do you select them? What criteria do you use? Who do you choose to work with? And then how do you make technology decisions?
So after Blue Origin, I went to work for Nathan Myhrvold. And we started a lab called the Intellectual Ventures Lab. And the idea was to try and find ways to invest in inventors and invest in invention and really go after the biggest problems that we could find. And a huge amount of the work we did was specifically to try and invent solutions to some of the problems in the developing world that aren't getting the same kind of attention that problems of the West are getting. And a lot of that work is funded by Bill Gates. He would hang out at the lab with us and invent these things and fund those projects. And so we got to work on some really important things. And you mentioned malaria previously. That was one of the biggest invention areas for us. And one of our inventions, the most famous one, is the one you describe. It's a machine that can find mosquitoes flying around and shoot them down with laser beams. Which, when you're an inventor, you always want to invent with a laser because lasers are cool. Yeah. And that's not a comprehensive solution to malaria, but it's another tool to put in the arsenal. And that's really important because when you look at the problem, malaria takes, disease spread by mosquitoes is taking maybe probably about 750,000 lives a year right now.
Yes.
It's down a little from about 1 million lives a year, which has been the average for a while. And that's a lot of lives lost. COVID's going to take 1 million lives in its first year, maybe. We lose that many lives every year to disease spread by mosquitoes, and malaria chief among them. And the truth is, we don't have this problem in America. We don't have this problem in Europe. We used to, but we were able to solve that problem with the best technology we had at the time, which was spray chemicals that kill everything. That's how and then you hope the good stuff comes back. That's how we got rid of malaria in Southern Europe and in the Southwest here in the US. And, that technology is not good enough for the scale that we have this problem in Africa and Southeast Asia. And so we have to invent new ways of going after that problem. And so at the lab, we were able to really, fortunately, thanks to Bill, really take that on in a bunch of ways. So, lasers is just one of the things, but we also did a lot of other work on ways of attacking malaria and have other cool inventions in diagnostics and in computational modeling for epidemiology, so you can figure out how to deploy your resources to go after infectious disease. In fact, a lot of that work is what underpins Bill Gates' work on COVID now, right? Because we've been working on pandemics for almost the last 15 years and infectious disease in general, and trying to understand how to solve those problems. So we have a lot of inventions from that. Anyway, so the lab is a pretty unique place, and we were able to do a lot of really cool invention work there. But getting back to your question about deciding what to work on, I don't know. We tried everything. We tried prioritizing things that we thought could save some lives, things that we thought could make some money, things that we thought were just cool. But you never know. And with invention, it's very hard to guess early on whether you're working on the right invention. And the way we deal with that is just do it at a really large scale. We would file about 500 patents a year on our own inventions. Wow. And at that scale, one of them is going to be good. You don't know which one. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a lot of what it takes. Is you really have to get a lot of shots on goal. And wasting your time trying to predict everything usually doesn't pay off as well. Personally, my way is to work on whatever I think is most exciting at any given moment. I think, and this might be relevant to some of the folks listening, one thing we know about brains, we don't know a lot about brains, but one of the things we know is they're optimized for learning and focusing on things that they're interested in, right? And this is kind of, it sounds kind of obvious, but if you think about a lot of the things you've done in your life, at school or at work, a lot of times you're being coerced into doing something you're not interested in. Well, you're by definition, like we guessed at this before, but now that we have fMRI and imaging of live brains, we can actually watch. When you're interested, your brain lights up. When you're not, it's just little blips here and there. And so I always just work on something I'm interested in. If I'm interested, then I'll stay up all night, I'll learn a lot, I'll enjoy doing it, I'll be more productive, I'll get more done, I'll feel great about the whole process. If I'm doing something I'm not interested in, then I don't think that's what the world needs me to be doing. So I don't do those things if I can avoid it. And sometimes, so sometimes you have to cheat,
Yes. Sorry, you're in a very luxurious position because you can choose.
Nope. I mean, that's true to some extent, but even when I wasn't, like when I was a kid, I was broke, but I still chose the things I was interested, even over the things that were safe. Right now, that's a luxury I had because even being broke, I didn't have to worry about dying of malaria. I didn't have to worry about starving. So I definitely had a baseline that was higher than some people have. But I think a lot of people are over-optimizing for predictability, for safety, for security, and they're choosing those things. When you go to college, are you going to choose to be an accountant? No offense to accountants. We need some good ones. Because your parents said it was a safe career and you're not interested, I think that's a poor choice for a lot of people. Now, again, not to disparage anyone. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And if you're, trying to take care of your kid or family or whatever, you do what you got to do. I'm not judging anyone, but for the people who are out there like I was, you could choose the safe route, but I don't see it being any more fulfilling. We don't need more people to do the safe thing. We need more people to do the thing that can help, that can make a difference, right? And I'm not I'm trying to speak here to the people who might be like me, who might have an interest in technology, who might have an interest in doing something new. We also need a lot of teachers. We need a lot of nurses. We need a lot of people to take care of other people. And if you're built for that, go for it. Don't listen to me. But but I think we got a lot of people out there playing it safe, and I don't think we need that as much as we're investing in the people that way.
Amen. Hallelujah. I totally agree with you. I'm looking at my questions, and I'm just going to start freestyling.
Yeah.
You said so many cool things. Tell us how you got to be a hacker, because you talk about your childhood, you talk about being broke. What happened? Why am I sitting here with one of the world's top hackers?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Alaska. It's pretty remote. It's pretty cold. It's pretty dark. Not a lot of things to do. And somehow my dad got me a computer when I was like 9 years old. And I don't know why, like he didn't really understand the thing either, but for some reason, he got me what essentially was the first home computer that someone could get. And it was really expensive. I don't know why he did it, but I didn't have anything better to do. So I got so excited about that thing. I was a kid in Alaska. I spent 16 hours a day on the computer, and there was no internet. There was no Netflix, no YouTube, no Instagram, no cats, no cute puppies. All you could do basically is crash it and reboot it. The thing didn't even have pictures on it. So I learned a lot the hard way, and that actually was good for me because I learned everything you could about a computer by myself. Nobody for 1,000 miles in any direction knew more about it than me, so I had to just figure it out, which is very inefficient and slow. But I learned what all those little ones and zeros are doing. I learned how it worked at a very fundamental level, and then I could imagine how someday the thing would have more memory, someday it would be faster, and I was convinced that someday it would be useful. No one else believed me. In fact, I had the Apple II. Actually, you can see it. That's it right there.
Oh,
that's the
wow.
Apple II from my childhood behind me. And, I had that thing, and I had a skateboard. And people were pretty conflicted about which was a bigger waste of time, right? Because nobody knew what a computer was. Nobody had seen one. Nobody had used one. And so I sounded like a crazy kid from the future, from childhood, and in some sense, I guess I still am. And because for me, all I ever had to do is just keep learning the new stuff, right? And I've been doing that my whole life, and so it's pretty tough to catch up to me. I know a lot about computers now. Yeah.
Wow. So did you take any formal schooling, or you're just self-taught and you just learn as you go? Because I was looking around to see if you were mentioning any kind of university or college education. Couldn't find it.
Yeah, you don't go to school for computer hacking. You get kicked out of school for computer hacking. So it's not a traditional career trajectory. So yeah, I didn't go to college. In fact, by the time I got out of high school, I was able to get companies were trying to use computers, but they didn't have anybody who knew about them. And so eventually somebody would say, well, you should call this Pablos guy. And I would, get paid to come play with the most expensive new computers. I thought it was amazing. And I learned a lot more that way. And so I just kept doing, and I was always really interested in, using computers to do things for people, right? I didn't just have a theoretical interest in how the science of computation or something. I was actually always trying to make them do something and convince people that they were cool. And revenge of the nerds, I was right. Eventually people were convinced.
And you were on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
One thing that people I find is that people don't really understand hacking. They immediately go to the negative side, the dark side of this. So typically, so I run a tech education academy, and typically the parents will contact me and say, we got to get our kids into computer science because we're scared they're going to be a hacker. And then the kids come and they say, the only reason we're here is because we want to be hackers.
Yeah, I love it.
Tell us about what exactly a hacker does and the different notions of a hacker.
Well, one way I've described it is, if you get a new gadget and show it to your mom, she might ask you, well, what does this do? And you can explain. It's a phone, iPhone, says on the box. If you get a new gadget and show it to a hacker, then the question is different, right? The question is, what can I make this do? Because the hacker is going to flip it over, take out all the screws, break it into a lot of little pieces, but then figure out what can be learned from that, what we can build from that, right? And it's that discovery process that's just fundamental to invention. It's fundamental to innovation. And without it, you never get anything new. No one's ever invented a new technology by reading the directions, right? Hackers are the people violating the warranty before they got the shrink wrap off. We need them. We need them. But, I'm not saying you want to hire them because, sometimes they're a little, there's a screw loose somewhere. There's a lot of screws loose, but that's a different kind of mindset, and it's really, really important. And instead of trying to suppress them, we need to celebrate it and help put them to productive use. I'm trying to rescue hackers from computer security and get them working on malaria, right? So it's just a mindset that needs to be developed, and I think really encouraged. And yeah, it's harder these days. When I was a kid, you could take a screwdriver to a lot of things and learn a lot. That's kind of less true. All you find with a screwdriver now is a pile of computer chips. But those computer chips are powerful. That's why they're in everything, and that's worth learning about. So I'd say these days, the starter drug for kids is often like Minecraft. Like I see parents say, my kids just want to play Minecraft and I can't make them stop. I'm like, I'm trying to talk my kid into dropping out of school to play Minecraft, and she won't do it. Right? I'm a disappointed parent because my kid won't play this video games. Minecraft is actually like the starter drug because in order to get good at it, you have to learn to install these mods and write code. You actually write code in Minecraft to build things and make it do what you want. It's extraordinary and so exciting. I had to learn things in such a harder fashion. Like you can learn so much. So I think like for kids, definitely Minecraft. Once you graduate from that, there's like a zillion directions you can go in. Some of it's with games, some of it's building software. You can build mobile apps for your phone or iPad. You can learn to make games. You can learn to make other stuff. And I think that with my kid, I just try to figure out what she's interested in and then add fuel to the fire, whatever it is. I don't care if she turns out the same as other kids. I don't care if she learns all the same stuff at the same time as other kids. I just want her to turn out to be screwed up in a different way than all the other kids in the neighborhood. And so far it's working.
Noble cause, noble intention.
Yeah.
Back to the hacking point.
Sure, yeah.
So you got all these kids that want to be hackers. So my question is, how do you instill in them the ethics to really want to do hacking for good and to help people? Because it's really easy to veer the other way. What about you in your life? What kind of ethics have governed you, and how do you stay the course? Because, you could get the next billionaire saying, hey, we want to kind of hack the banking system. And, it might not be for such a great cause.
Well, look, you couldn't make the banking system a lot worse, so I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that's a problem. I've been working on cryptocurrency since the 90s, trying to figure out how to make banks obsolete, and we're making some progress here. But look, I think there's, the risk is in some sense lower, right? Like for American kids, computer hacking didn't turn out to be a fruitful criminal track, right? If you're going to be a hacker that's a criminal, you're going to compete with a lot of really smart kids from Romania, from all over Asia, now the Middle East, and increasingly Africa. And these are some hustlers. Holy cow, I can't keep up with them. So, if you're going to look for ways to steal money on the internet, probably you're going to lose to those guys. But lucky for you, you can get a 6-figure job configuring firewalls at a Fortune 500 bank. So if you're an American hacker, there's a job for you that probably pays better than crime. And that's true in some sense for European hackers increasingly and further east. But there's some really brilliant talent over there for sure. So I think, depending on where you are, probably your kids are going to find something that pays better than crime. Look, I think a lot of people really would like to be helpful and would like to be productive and would like to be part of a team and would like to do something that, they can actually be proud of. Stealing credit card numbers, it ain't as cool as it sounds. So I think that problem is a little bit overblown. For kids who want to get into hacking, I think the trick is to hack your own stuff. You hack your parents' stuff maybe, but don't try and go after Google or Facebook or Microsoft. You're probably going to lose. And it's just not, there's a lot of legal infrastructure now to come after you. So you want to learn a lot by trying to attack things. And you can. You can download all the tools that hackers use that I would use. A lot of them are free. They're online. You can download those tools and start attacking your own computers for fun. And, you'll find a way to blow someone's mind. It can be fun. So you'll learn a lot along the way. Yeah.
My last question to you is, do you have specific actionable advice for the adults and kids' lives? You talk about download the resources. Can you be really specific?
Sure.
Do you have sources that you could point people to?
I mean, step one, if you want to learn about computer hacking, step one is just learn to install Linux. If you can do that, which is pretty easy now. It's not the way I did it, but whatever. It's a good start. Learn to install Linux. If you can do that, learn to install Linux without a desktop. Just the server version. The only way to talk to it is what's called a shell with commands. You don't get a mouse. You don't get any pictures or graphics. All you get is code. So you learn to install Linux and operate it through a command line. That's a good thing that anyone can do for free on their computer. And then once you do that, get Kali Linux. That's Kali Linux. That's the version of Linux that comes with all the hacking tools, right? It's loaded with, hacking tools. It's got things like Nmap you can use for learning about networks. It's got things like Metasploit, which you can use for attacking websites and software. So just try it out and play with it. And you can learn almost anything from YouTube videos, just like the same way you learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube watching YouTube videos. Just go watch YouTube videos on hacking demos and you can copy that. For more inspiration, my buddy Sammy, who's one of my favorite hackers, has a YouTube channel with some cool stuff on it. Look up Sammy Kamkar, Kamkrar. Sammy's a great guy and a good hacker to learn from, just to get ideas about what's possible. And I think, you should learn to code, of course. I think everyone should learn to code, not because you want, even if, you think you want to be a nurse, that's fine. Learn to code. And the reason is, that way you can, harass nerds better, but also you can learn to think in a logical progression, right? So even if you never want to write any software, just learn to code, because you'll learn something super important about not only how to understand the machines and how they work, understand everybody else who's interested in computers and all the nerds and engineers, but you'll also learn to think in a logical progression. And you can use that powerfully for everything in your life. And that's one thing I think is really worth doing. And you can
the easiest way to learn to code right now, I think, is if you have an iPad, there's an app called Swift Playgrounds, which is free from Apple. It's like a video game that you play by coding, and it'll teach you every step of the way. And you learn the same programming language that's used to make iPhone apps. Like, it's incredible. I am so jealous of you guys because I had to learn by pulling teeth. So hard.
Pablos, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege to talk to a great tech mind and to kind of get an idea of the process of what goes on in your head and what you do. And yeah, thank you also for the tips that you give, the really concrete tips, because I think this will at least help guide the adults in the kids' lives who want to be hackers. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.